Hey guys, so you want to buy your first house. Well, there's a few steps involved before you even get to the point of buying that house. Yuko and I actually were looking for our first rental several years ago, many years ago, and we looked and looked and looked for maybe 3 months, wasted a lot of time, wasted a lot of our realtor's time, and it was really kind of silly the way we started. We were kind of like ready, fire, aim sort of, and it became more and more apparent that we had no idea what we were doing. And hey, if you're excited about this and you want to learn more, please hit the like button and please make sure to subscribe. So the first thing you got to do, absolutely first thing you've got to do before you start doing anything else, is get your financing straight. I know a lot of people talk about doing homework, and I talk about it all the time because I want you to move forward all the time. And if you can't do anything else, at least you can do that. But the one thing you've got to do is find out how much you can afford. When we were looking before for our first place, we looked and looked, like I said, but we really had no idea what we qualified for a second home or a rental. So after a few months and after wasting time, we actually talked to a loan officer and got pre-approved, found out that we qualified for X amount of dollars, and then we actually had some clarity as to exactly what we could afford and what areas we could shop in. And that was really, really helpful. I can't tell you how helpful that was because we were all over the place. We were all over Orange County, which is in California, if you're not from the area or familiar with it. And we were looking at big houses and apartment complexes and, everything in between, because we didn't know what we could afford. We had these dreams that we could afford these apartment complexes, but it turned out we could only afford a single family home, which was fine. We turned that single family home into a $10 million portfolio today. And it took us about 9 years to do it, but we did it. So what are the steps as far as getting pre-qualified? Well, you've got to find out, like I said, how much you can afford. All right, then you got to figure out what your down payment's going to be and what type of loan you're going to get, whether it's going to be an FHA, a conventional, and that makes a big difference with your down payment. Now, an FHA loan is 3.5% down, whereas conventional could be 10, 20%, or as much as you want to put down. Here in Southern California, we actually have to put quite a bit down in order to make the property cash flow. So if we only put 3.5% down on most properties, they wouldn't work. We have found some that do work at that low down payment, but for the most part, they don't work. But number two is deciding what kind of property you want to get. Now, you've already gotten some clarity on what you can purchase because of pre-qualifying for a loan. So you know a dollar amount at this point, but you don't know exactly what you want to buy. You can buy a single family home, a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex, or you can buy whatever you want to if you can qualify for it. But typically, most investors start off with single family homes. Reason being is they're easier to qualify for. There's a whole lot more of them out there, and you can move into them and hack them out. In other words, you can rent out rooms and actually cash flow, or at least break even, or worst case scenario, you get to live a little bit cheaper than rent, and you've got all the tax benefits of owning a house. And you learn how to be a landlord too. So that's really important. So figure out what kind of house you want. We started off with a single family home with what you call an ADU on the back. All right, now you know exactly what you qualify for, what you want to get. Now you got to pick an area. Number 3 is pick an area. Now around our house, we've got so many different areas. We've got just a couple of miles from your house that sell in the millions of dollars. And then a couple miles the other direction, you can get something for $400,000 or $500,000. Now, for those of you in the Midwest and some other parts of the country, that might seem like an enormous amount of money. But our rents here are really equal with the amount that you pay for a house. So a $500,000 house here might rent for $3,000 a month. It does make sense, but you have to put a little bit more money down. So deciding on the area is really vital. You have to figure out where you can afford with the pre-qualification you've got on your loan, with the type of rental property you decided to buy. You've got to find an area that fits that criteria. Now, once you've found that area, it's really important for you to drive up and down the streets, day and night, and also check out all the peripheral things around there. You got to check out laundromats. For some reason there's no laundry, you better have it. Grocery stores, schools, everything like that that a tenant could possibly have questions about or have needs for. Is transportation close by? Is there a bus line that's close? These types of things are really important. And tenants are going to look for that. They're going to decide on a rental, not always based on the house itself, but perhaps based on the amenities around it. You know, if it's a one-car household and you've got kids, if you've got a family moving in with kids, walking to school is going to be very important to them. So being close to a school is vital. So a lot of people don't even have a car. So walking to a grocery store can be a vital thing. Keep all these things in mind. The more things that you can check off on your list of things that are important to people, the better off you are. Perhaps a 2-story house is better. People need more square footage. Or perhaps a 1-story house is better because there's more older people in that neighborhood. Maybe it's a retirement area. Or perhaps it's an area of young families, in which case a stairway is fine. You know, you've got to decide exactly who your potential tenant's going to be and purchase your property according to that. It's going to be really important. When you've got 10 houses that are for rent on one street, do you want yours to shine the most? Of course you do. So if a 4-bedroom, 2-bath is the ultimate house on that street, then look for a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house. If a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house is great, then do that. Do your research. Find out what things are renting for. Find out what's around. Always research, research, research. Don't do it to paralyze yourself. You got to make decisions too. But make sure that whatever you buy is the best fit for your tenant. All right, number 4. You need to find out what that house is worth. How do you do that? You comp it. Comp is another word for comparable. So a comparable price can be found on websites like Redfin and Zillow, and you can find the links down below for that. It's really important that you find out what your house is going to sell for before you buy it. If you overpay, that's not good, right? If you underpay, very good. That's the whole idea, is for you guys to find a good value on a house. So what do you do to compare it? Look for houses that are similar in size, similar in bedroom count, similar in bathroom count, and compare them. Then you have to actually look at the houses that are in the similar shape. So we kind of grade houses on total rehab, move-in ready, or rehabbed. So there's 3 choices. Most of the houses we buy are complete rehabs. We need to completely rehab them, in other words. So maybe you're not handy, maybe you're not comfortable doing the construction on a house. You may be looking for a move-in ready, which is a house that basically needs carpet and paint. Everything else is up to snuff. Or you may want to buy a house that's been completely redone. That's your choice. But for us, because we have a construction background, or I do, we always buy houses that are in very rough shape, and we take advantage of the fact that we can get a discount on that. That might not be the case for you. You decide, then you comp it accordingly. If you don't comp your houses, you're going to get screwed. You don't want to do that. The next thing you want to do is check all the utilities. You want to check the property tax amount. You want to check out what sort of utilities you're going to be paying as a landlord. So oftentimes there's trash that is not included in for the tenant. The tenant actually covers electricity, gas, and if it's a single family home, water. If it's an apartment, generally you're covering the water. So you need to figure out what utilities you're going to be paying and what utilities they're going to be paying, and you need to allow for that when you do your analysis. So utilities are important. The price of the house obviously is important. The other things that you've got to look for, again, are the tax base. Tax base is really important because it can make or break you, especially with the prices that are going houses are going for today. In Southern California, we pay about 1.1%. So make sure that you've got all of your expenses there so that you know exactly what your monthly payment's going to be, including all expenses. All right, guys, those are the first few steps on getting your first house. They're all really, really important, and they've got to be followed. You can't just skip to number 5. You've got to go 1 through 5. It doesn't make sense to skip steps. Follow that process, and you'll be able to get your first house. If you don't, you might miss something, and that's not good because that's going to end up costing you in the end. I've met way too many people that have skipped ahead to the end and not done all their homework. Now, again, I think I mentioned it earlier, don't analyze to paralyze. In other words, don't analyze for the next 6 months something that's as simple as this. This requires some work, but it's not complicated work. I understand sometimes we're scared to move forward on things, but this isn't that complicated. So make sure, do your homework, have confidence when you go in. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. Again, please, if you liked what you saw, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks so much. Hey guys, check out these 2 videos. They're really going to help you on your investment journey. I'm also on Instagram. Tons of great video content there. Really good stuff. Please subscribe. I'll see you next time.